All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Fights of Friends. We are live. I'm here with a special guest this week, former COO of W1 MMA, and just a great all-around guy. Always got his nose to the ground in MMA. Ian Brewster. How you doing, brother?
Very good, sir. And yourself?
I'm doing very good. I'm feeling like you owe me a told you so on the ESPN Disney deal already after I'm seeing this 50 Cent sign with Bellator as to what a big company can do to an MMA company, though.
You know, the crazy thing is about that is when it happened, my friends who are much deeper in MMA, much deeper, they were contacting me like, dude, is this for real? Like, I'm like, guys, you're supposed to know this. I'm not supposed to. You guys are supposed to tell me this. You guys work with Bellator directly. Why are you asking me? I mean, that's how crazy I think this whole thing is. And I'm not gonna lie, this actually interests me more. If he's gonna fight Rampage Jackson, I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this. This for me actually interests me more than Conor McGregor fighting Floyd Mayweather. I don't know why, but this is such a freak show thing that I'm like, I gotta watch it. I gotta watch this if
Uh,
it does happen.
it's good for Rampage because honestly, as much as I've been a fan throughout his career, he doesn't seem to really be able to hang with the main competition anymore.
No, he's had his time, and I'm not hating on him at all because I've always been a fan since the Pride days. But there's only so much of a beatdown you can get. I mean, he's got to be he's in his late 30s now, early 40s. His window is closing quickly, and you know, get that money fight if you can, buddy. Get that one big money fight with 50 cents. If it turns to be a big fight, get the money fight and call it a career.
Oh, absolutely. I would not blame him for getting the money at all. And that's something I think fans don't understand is that they think, oh, Randy Couture went till he was 46, such and such went till he was such and such. Guys don't age the same. I mean,
No, no.
it's a huge. There's guys that are definitely shot at
Yeah,
35, and you've seen it in boxing, especially.
yeah.
I mean, boxing's been around for longer. The lower weights, it used to be
Mm-hmm.
considered 33, 34. I mean, that's a wrap.
Yeah, yeah. It's one story. I'm gonna tell this story, and hopefully I have permission to tell this story. But I know he's been very open about it. Um, Very interesting story with a very good friend of mine, Carlos Newton. So for the fans out there who don't know who Carlos was, he was actually the first Canadian to win a belt in the UFC, and he actually won the welterweight championship before George St. Pierre. So two Canadians have actually held that belt. George St. Pierre, the most famous of them. But before that, there was Carlos Newton, back in the dark days of the UFC, and he famously beat Pat Miletich. And shortly after that, he would end up fighting Matt Hughes, and Matt Hughes would beat him in a very controversial fight. Um, Carlos Newton had Matt Hughes had picked him up. Carlos Newton had him in a hole. Matt Hughes picked him up, slammed him on the cage floor, and knocked himself out. Well, he was out before he went out. He was out from the hole and knocked out Carlos Newton on the way down. So they were both pretty much out. It's the only reason why Matt Hughes wins, and I believe Matt Hughes admitted because he got him first. So he admitted after he was out. So because it was so controversial, they'd have the fight again. They'd have a rematch later on in the UK. They had it in London, and Carlos just got destroyed by Matt. Matt just beat him up for 3 rounds. And the reason why I'm bringing up this entire story is I spoke to Carlos about this, and he'd spoken to other people about this story as well too. And he said when he got dropped on the mat, he got a concussion, and it took him years to recover from that. And there was this constant ringing in his ear for about 2 years. And he went to the doctor and he told the doctor about it. He's like, dude, you got a concussion. And he's like, okay, well, listen, I'm gonna have this for a few weeks, or maybe a month or so, it'll go away. It didn't go away. There's always this in his back of his ear. That's a sign of a concussion. And when he fought Matt Hughes months later, whatever it was, 8 months later, whatever it was, he was still in the middle of this concussion. To be truthful, and he was not the same guy. And Matt Hughes beat the hell out of him because he was not like a guy like Chuck Liddell, all the knockouts that he's got, towards the end of his career. By guys like Rampage and Rashad and Rich Franklin and the war he would have been with Vanderlei Silva. What does that do to your body? What does it do to your head? So, I'm all for guys now getting the money fight and getting out as quickly as possible. Not because I hate the sport, I love the sport. I love combat sports. But, that's the beating that some of these guys take for, especially in the stuff that you never see televised, the local fights and stuff. And, here's some of these guys who fought 20, 30 times. Like, that's got to take a toll on your body after a while. And, like I said, Carlos Newman, a good friend of mine, he didn't have that many fights compared to, a lot of other guys, like Jeremy Horn, let's say. And look how it's affected him. So I can only imagine down the road what some of these guys are going to go through. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And those people that don't remember, that are maybe a little newer to the sport, Carlos Newton was an absolute stud, UFC champion, I believe, and definitely one of the best pound for pound at one time.
He was a journeyman fighter. Like, he was, one of the most respected fighters of his era. And then now he's since retired out of the sport. He teaches up here in Toronto, just a little bit north of the city, and he's a great guy, great all-around guy. He's a nice, humble guy, and very good with his teaching is like top notch. But it's just it kind of makes you pause and think that a guy like that, how he can experience these traumatic experiences in his body, and how it affects him. Like I said, for 2 years there was this ringing in his ear, and it makes you wonder when you hear stuff like that, how many of these fighters that are out there right now, they're going through the same thing, but there's no way they're going to stop because I got to put food on the table. I got to do this. So I have empathy for these guys, and especially when you hear in the UFC card, some dude is fighting and he's getting $5,000 or $10,000 to show. It's like, you're not really making any money unless you become like Anderson Silva of your day, or Conor McGregor, or one of these guys. You're not getting an insane amount of money. You're not getting retirement money.
No, definitely, and that's why I don't fault. I don't even fault Conor for going for the Floyd money. Honestly, as frustrated as I am and kind of tired of hearing about him as an MMA fan, honestly, there's times I just I don't care what he does. I kind of tell people, shut up about Conor. I'm kind of tired of hearing about him. I don't blame him for taking the money.
I agree. Can you? Some guy, I'm sure we've all said this as a kid. You hear the money that people make from fighting Mike Tyson, and inevitably one of your friends would say, dude, I would take a dive at 1/10 of the money. Someone was getting to fight Mike Tyson, for $30 million payday or something. So I totally, don't fault him for taking that fight. His attitude as of late is a different story, but for taking that fight and hyping up that fight, calling out, Floyd Mayweather, and getting even, I give him respect just for getting Floyd Mayweather's attention. Dude, you're Floyd Mayweather, the greatest boxer of all time. You don't need this. You don't need this, right? But just the fact that he got him in the ring and he got under his skin enough, I can turn this into a payday. I'm going to make some money off it. And I heard interesting. I don't know if this is true or not. This is a little side story. I heard it a few weeks ago that Floyd Mayweather, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I can totally see it in that just before the fight got delayed a little. And the rumor is it was Floyd Mayweather who did it because he got a call from one of his guys saying, I guess the pay-per-view buys in some states were down because they're having problems to get people on the system, on warning them to watch the fight. So he purposely delayed the fight so he could get more eyeballs to watch the fight, which means bigger payday for him because he gets a portion of every pay-per-view. So he waited until he got the all clear from wherever, California, Nevada, whatever one that was having pay-per-view problems, he could log on. He waited until they had the problem fixed. Then he could come to the fight. Then he said, okay, I'll do my ring entrance and start the fight now. So he could get a bigger cut of the pay-per-view. This is like, there's a guy who's thinking, it's all about, it's the money fight. It's the biggest money fight of my career. I'm going to make sure
Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing down in the comments, guys addressing the audio. There's an issue, I believe, on the internet on my side. I believe something with Facebook Messenger. We weren't able to connect, so that's why I have the phone up to the mic. If you guys are wondering. So this is the best we can do, and luckily my
I'll
mic's
try to speak
pretty.
a little bit clearer. Hopefully everyone can hear me.
Okay, my mic's pretty loud, so I've actually gotten complaints that my mic's a little too loud sometimes. So hopefully that will help. So, but my hope was when I seen the ESPN Disney thing. My hope always is it was let's see the fighters get paid. That was what I wanted to see was fighters get these bigger paydays. Like GSP's now fighting Nate Diaz, which kind of came out of freaking nowhere. I didn't
Yeah.
expect that at all. Especially the odds. The GSP's only coming out a minus 200 favorite. Nate Diaz a plus 160. I expected those odds to be much wider. And then I hear Dana White saying that they're going to fight at 155. And I'm scratching my head. I'm looking at GSP and that fight against Michael Bisping. And I mean, he looks like he's 250 pounds. And I'm thinking, how is this guy going to make 155?
It's an interesting, as you said, I did not see that fight coming. Like, when I heard this, like, this guy's talking. This is not going to happen, right? And here comes this fight, and it's interesting on the heels of this ESPN. I mean, obviously, they're probably working on this fight long before the ESPN Disney deal. And when you first had mentioned it to me, because you're the one that made me aware of this whole deal, one of the reasons why I was kind of scratching my head and I was kind of giving me the I'll believe it when I see it attitude towards this deal is for one reason. Every time UFC has signed a big contract, whether it would be with Fox or is it Adidas that they're with? I'm not Adidas who they're with right now, the clothing company, the apparel company. Oh my God, my brain is collapsing here. Who's the official brand clothing company of the UFC right now?
Reebok.
Reebok. Thank you.
Yeah.
Whether it be Reebok, whether it be the deal with Fox, whether it be the pay-per-view, we always heard the same thing that the fighters are going to get paid what they deserve, and it never happens. I mean, we've heard this time and time and time again. They're going to get a bigger cut. It's going to be better, and in the end, it doesn't happen. And we have guys like Rogan McDonald and all these guys who led the UFC and went to Bellator. So I'm not holding my breath with this. When they got the Spike deal, the fighters were supposed to get paid more. When they got the Fox deal, the fighters were supposed to get paid more. They got the Reebok deal. Dana White was all on TV saying, oh, the fighters are going to get paid more. They're going to get a bigger cut. The fighters say they want more money. They're going to get more money. And nothing has changed. So, on one hand, you have a company that owns the UFC now that basically they're a talent management company. And their goal is to make as much money for their brand as much as possible. And then you have like Disney and ESPN on the other side, that's going to push this. I see more just money fights happening for big fighters, not so much in the fight that hardcore fans want, which is we want to have a ranking system. We want to have these fighters work their way up, and when they get to the top, they're going to be making big money. Now it's going to be like the Conor McGregor show. Conor McGregor versus this guy, Conor McGregor versus Godzilla, whatever is going to sell the most amount of pay-per-view, they're going to make. And so I'm not convinced yet that this deal is going to mean more money for the fighters because we've heard that song and dance before.
No, absolutely. I don't know if you've seen the final deal on this. I guess it's 5 years, $750 million for ESPN Plus. I know the first year it's 15 fights on ESPN Plus, which is their new streaming service, at $4.99 a month. I was not aware until today when I was reading the actual, the finality of it and the details. This is not going to be on ESPN cable TV whatsoever. The UFC will still have the right, it looks like, to air cards on Fox or wherever they want. This is kind of more to help the ESPN Plus deal. And then there's going to be something going on with UFC Fight Pass, which isn't exactly clear yet. They didn't exactly clarify that. I don't think we're going to get UFC Fight Pass and the ESPN Plus for $5 a month, but there's definitely something weird. And I had assumed that this was for the ESPN cable deal, and that's not the case.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was definitely interesting. So, that's what I read from MMA Junkie. I verified it with about 3 or 4 sources. I mean, I know a lot of these things change, and sometimes I think, maybe a good source, maybe even like Ariel Helwani, can get some bad news, and everybody kind of regurgitates it just like the rest of the press. So, I mean, maybe that's not exactly the deal, but it sounds like, from everything I can see, that's the deal.
It's funny that I'm going to change topics for a second because I actually wanted your opinion on this. The other day when I heard this, I wanted to actually message you, and I got caught up doing about 60 minutes of different things. I want to rewind a little bit to a couple of months ago with the whole Conor McGregor New York incident. And again, I don't want to be spreading rumors. I don't even know if this is remotely true, but if it is true, it'd be very interesting. Because of the corporate culture that has obviously changed in the UFC. I heard a rumor from a couple of different sources, both of them are fairly reliable, that when the whole Conor McGregor thing went down, like Dana White was legitimately mad. Like he was like losing his mind. And I guess the powers that be that own the UFC put Dana White in the room and said, you better make this right. Not in the sense that, hey, listen, Conor McGregor fucked up, let him suffer, but more as, dude, don't talk shit about Conor. That is a cash cow. Find a way to get him back. Find a way, whatever we need to, however we need to make this go away, and however we need to, spin this and do whatever. You do what you got to do, but don't you be going on TV and saying, oh, I'm done with Conor McGregor and I can't help him, blah, 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 blah. That's why the next day suddenly, I talked to Conor, everything's good. More like the powers that be talk to you, and you better make sure everything is good. So I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm wondering if you heard that same rumor.
I heard exactly the same thing, and I've been sworn to secrecy that I won't give up my source, but I will say pretty damn close. Like I said, I can't give up my source, but it's pretty high up there. This is not a person that would make something up or have any reason to make something up. And I don't want to give away that source. Like I said, they're pretty high up there in the UFC.
Again, I wouldn't put it past because, again, corporate culture has changed at the UFC. Now that Zuffa, for the most part, doesn't run the show anymore. So it's at least the Fertitas don't really run the show anymore. So it's very interesting. I mean, again, from a cash point of view, I get it. Conor is your superstar. The more this is the P.T. Barnum saying, in the modern era, all publicity is good publicity. People I know who don't give a damn about Conor McGregor are coming up to you and saying, hey, did you ever have with Conor McGregor? Like, yeah, I heard about it. And what do you think is going to happen next? And it's interesting that I wonder how many people went to that show hoping that Conor McGregor was going to show up out of nowhere and say some nonsense on the mic at the end of the fight.
Yeah, I kind of have to wonder. But, if this were turned around, if this were the NBA, I have to wonder, if this had been LeBron James or Michael Jordan back in the day, I have to wonder if they'd want the commissioner, to come out against those guys. Those are two kind of, the most untouchable guys I could think of kind of in other sports. As those two, and then maybe Tom Brady in the NFL when even he faced a small suspension.
Yeah, I believe it was a Joe Rogan experience. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Brendan Schwab, and I could be wrong, so forgive me if I am. But it was definitely the Joe Rogan experience. Now I'm like thinking of his time I ever talked to Brendan Schwab. But the guest that was on said something, I never looked at it this way, that they have to be careful with what's going on with Conor McGregor. And again, assuming that they're not blowing this up and building it up on purpose, hey, go be an asshole, sell tickets. They said it's interesting. There was a whole Nick Diaz incident where he's throwing the water bottles, and there's a Conor, stop it, Conor, he's throwing the water bottles and whatever. And the UFC talked to him. And then they had the incident in the UK where he assaulted the referee, and nothing was done about it. And now you have the bus incident where potentially could have ended some fighters' careers. And again, as they said, as of now, the UFC has not said they're going to suspend him, whatever. Are you creating your own monster now?
Oh, absolutely. And Conor finally came out. I don't know if you've seen. He came out and gave a formal apology to all of the people that were involved. And Rose came out and said, "Are you fucking kidding me? Fuck you."
Oh, I didn't even know about this.
Oh yeah, she came out literally, and she said, "Are you kidding me? Fuck you." That was her exact words.
Yeah.
And you can't blame her.
I can't blame her. I mean, it's I was trying to explain this to one of my friends who didn't kind of hear the story, and the story's like, dude, I get it. You're mad that Khabib got in the face of one of your guys. I get it, right? But there's going to be time for you and Khabib to settle your score. You jump on a plane with your guys, you come to New York to start this shit. But I'm hearing, of course, and maybe you can confirm this, that story's not true either. That Conor was supposed to make an announcement that night at the show. So Conor didn't jump on a plane angry to come and avenge his guy. That he was actually brought there because they were supposed to make some announcement. He was supposed to be fighting for Pete next or something. I don't know. And they basically quashed that for now.
I had thought that, but it was just speculation. I hadn't heard any reputable sources. I mean, there was a lot of people that were thinking that, but Dana says that he wasn't supposed to be there. I mean, I kind of feel like he probably was supposed to be. The story sounded kind of strange to me. I'm not sure why he picked up the dolly. I mean, if you go over there and you pick up a rubber garbage can and you throw around a few things that you don't actually break anything and you don't actually hurt anybody, then it's a lot more believable that it's kind of a publicity stunt. But when you have fighters injured and glass broken, I mean, Ray Borg could have ended his career. I mean, he had glass in his eye. I mean, then, so I don't know if he just took it one step further or, than he was supposed to, but it's interesting.
Well, one of my father, who is not an MMA fan, he's a boxing fan, and he's if it's on, he will watch it, and he has no idea who's who. But it's funny that my father, who doesn't watch UFC, made an interesting point that no one has made about Conor McGregor, which is, my dad's like, remember there was that black fella? He was wanted to fight George St. Pierre, and he fought that other black fella. And I guess the winner was supposed to fight George St. Pierre. I'm like, Dad, I don't know who you're talking about. He's like, give me a second. It'll come to me. Paul Daly. Paul Daly pushed the guy after the bell, and they ejected him from the UFC. He never fought again in the UFC. Is that correct? Didn't ever let him fight him? Like, no. And he goes, this guy assaults other guys on the bus, and the UFC has to come on and make a statement about that and put punishment against him. What type of uneven rules does the UFC have for behavior? Like, I never thought about that. Some dude pushes another dude after the bell out of frustration, which you can, although it's wrong, you can kind of see his point. Okay, you're frustrated, whatever. You push another dude after the fight, or throw a punch at him after the fight. You're suspended forever from the UFC. Conor McGregor, they had to change an entire card because of his behavior. It made the UFC, it brought the UFC back to the days of, hey man, this is not a sport. This is a bunch of idiots and a bunch of drunks and a bunch of druggies and a bunch of steroid guys just getting around and beating each other up. And, it's brought a lot of negative attention to the sport. And nothing. No, hey, you know what? Dude, you're suspended for a year. Whatever. You're something. There's nothing. And that is a good point. guys used to say that nobody's bigger than UFC. No bullshit. Conor McGregor is bigger than UFC right now. He's dictating the course of that organization.
Absolutely. And sorry about the audio, guys. I'm seeing some things in there. It was totally my fault. I want to give a shout out here. Bruce Lutz Medio just got a victory over Charles Felony Bennett. He's in the room, so hello to Bruce. Thanks for tuning in, man. Congratulations again on your victory. I turned the mic up as loud as it will go, so hopefully we got that in here. And this is all my fault. It's something to do with my internet here that the messenger's not working, I think. So I turned that up as loud as I'll go, so hopefully that fixes it.
Either that or Conor McGregor does not like us talking shit about him, so he's hired Cambridge Analytica to mess up your audio.
Exactly. Hey, this Russian thing has spread all the way to MMA. You seen the FBI went to Fedor's room when he was here to fight and interviewed him. Did you?
Kidding? Dude, how am I missing all this? Oh my god! I
What?
didn't hear about that.
Yeah, 100%. Look it up. He talked about it in the post interview too. After he beat Frank Mir, which was a great 48 seconds of violence. He said, yeah, they went to my room. They talked to me for about an hour and a half. They were really nice, and then they left. So.
I was actually disappointed with that fight. I saw I got it on YouTube the next day. I just saw the fight, like, oh, Frank Mir versus, like, oh, wow, really that quickly? Now, don't get me wrong, it's Fedor, so even though he's way past his prime, nothing Fedor does surprises me. I've just seen, even in his age, too, Frank Mir just a super tough guy. I thought Frank Mir would probably lose. I just didn't think it would be that quick. I figured it'd just be a beat down by Fedor, in the latter rounds. I didn't think it would go that quickly.
Yeah, he just has that kind of power that he can put people away, though, when he catches you. And those guys, I was surprised, especially with, veterans like that. There was no filling out process. And he got a really great, whether you want to call it judo or sambo, because sambo is what he does, but it's in both sports. And I heard guys calling it both. But he got that great throw that kind of set up that shot. And that's, I will say, is huge for Bellator. That's got to be worth, I don't know how you can put a price tag on it, but as far as this Grand Prix is concerned, I think Fedor winning instead of Frank Mir is probably worth $30 million for Bellator.
Absolutely, yeah. Of course, I already heard some stories that the fix was in. I don't know if that's true. I don't want to talk shit about Bellator because I like it, but a lot of people were saying the fix was in even before the fight. One of my friends said, Frank Mir will get destroyed in the first round. I'm like, are you saying this because you think Fedor is going to mollywop him? He's like, nope, the fix is in. He won't make it out in the first round. They got to put Fedor up as the king again. They need a boost in Bellator, and they're going to make Fedor the heavyweight champion. Okay, we'll see. And the next day, of course, I did watch the video, but before I got to the video, my Facebook messenger was like, hey, dude, I told you so. This is all set up. I'm not going to go down this conspiracy path, but it is an interesting thought.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, that was the Pride kind of thing. Obviously, that's kind of been out there. That's happened at Pride some. No accusations ever have been like that, really. For Bellator, there was the one thing. What was it? In Elite XC, there was a rumor and it sounds like it was more than a rumor. I can't remember who the guy was. Seth Petrozelli, when Shamrock backed out, yes, that they told Seth Petrozelli to not take Kimbo down. And then he goes out there and knocks him out in like 15 seconds. I 100% believe that.
I could totally believe that. I mean, they were pushing Kimbo to be the next big thing, right? So, I mean, I could totally buy that. I mean, I'm in Pride, as you know, we've all heard all the crazy stories that happened there. And, remember, the Pride was run by the mob, the Japanese mob. And it has its roots in, how many Pride stars, have their roots in Japanese pro wrestling. So I can totally see the fix being in there as well, too. And, Bellator, I don't know, but it's funny that you mentioned Elite XC what was the and forgive me, I am so tired today. I've had a long, crazy day. They replaced Elite XC, and they got bought out by, it was Scott Coker's old company. They got bought by UFC, and my brain is not working right now.
Well, they did they get bought by Strikeforce then? Because that was Scott Coker's company at the time. Okay.
Strikeforce.
Okay. Yeah.
So Strikeforce had done a couple of crossover shows with, I guess, some Japanese affiliates in Japan, and the rumors flew right away that, of course, there were some fixed fights and stuff, and I think it was just rumors because I don't think Scott Coker's that type of guy. But it is interesting that even today, I mean, you can see in Bellator there is a Japanese influence, like when they do things like with the kickbox, the hybrid, where they have like a kickboxing match and an MMA match. They're trying to bring back some of the Japanese guys, the guys who were famous in Japan, bringing back a guy like Fedor. There is that kind of like, I wonder if they're going for the pride, slightly skirting that pride feel, because they've even had the freak show fight, like they've had the old man fight. Like, do you really want to see this fight? But do you really want to see Ken Shamrock versus Royce Gracie again? What the hell? Or Ken Shamrock versus Kimbo, Kimbo versus Data 3000.
Well, and
I will say this, I gotta go on record as saying this, dude. One of my favorite fights of all time, Kimbo, rest in peace. Kimbo versus Dada is one of my favorite fights because it was so unbelievably bad, but it was so entertaining for me at the same time.
yeah, how bad is it when and Dada 5000's the ones that I'm talking about. I didn't know Kimbo was having heart problems at the time, but one guy is in such bad shape that a 15-minute fight, literally, he almost dies. And that was.
And they carried Dada out, like he couldn't even get up. They had to carry him on a stretcher because he did have a heart attack too, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, I believe they said he had a slight heart attack.
Yeah, I think they're carrying out a stretcher, and I remember who was it that was commentating said that it wasn't a knockout. He threw a punch and he just got tired and collapsed at the same time. Like when you look at the punch, it looks like it landed, so it's almost like you're throwing a punch at me and you miss, and my legs happened to go out at the same time because I'm so tired. And it's such an embarrassing fight to watch because of the main event as well too. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm entertained every time I see that fight because I couldn't imagine what Scott Coker and the rest of the guys are thinking in the background. Like, never again. This is never gonna happen ever again.
Oh God, yeah, they had to have been dying on that one, and that was one of their biggest build cards. It was actually one of their biggest ratings, just because of the names that they had in there, and then it was just an absolute embarrassment.
And I believe that was the same card as Royce Gracie and Shamrock. I think
it was.
Main event as well.
Honestly,
that is not like a throwback to like a Pride freak show fight. I don't know why.
I honestly don't think that they've ever recovered in ratings from that, and I think this Fedor versus Frank Mir fight is the beginning of that comeback, because before that, this Grand Prix has been absolutely horrible.
Yeah, agreed. I do want to throw it out there though. If Scott Coker is listening, Scott, please make it happen. Bring back Dada. Have him fight. What's his name?
50 Cent. What's that?
Have him fight Bob Sapp. Dada versus Bob Sapp.
Oh God. Bob Sapp, if you don't know, will come to your birthday party and you can knock him out for $50,000. That's 100% true. If you pay Bob Sapp $50,000, he will come to your birthday party to let you knock him out.
One of my favorite interviews was with Bob Sapp, and he was on like was ESPN or something, and they asked him. Actually, I think it was Ariel Helwani. He asked him like, Bob, every time you go in the ring, like people just don't want to see punches, and you just dribble up and crawl in the corner and until the referee stops the fight or you tap out. Isn't that kind of embarrassing for you? And he's like, hey man, they don't pay me enough money to get brain damage. Touche, brother. Touche.
I think I seen that.
Keep bringing it back.
I think I seen that.
Bringing you back. Touche. Get your Benjamins and retire, buddy.
Yeah, it was amazing. They just kept paying them over and over and over again, and everybody knew what the result was going to be. But you can't blame him. You know, after that many times, you can't blame him anymore.
Did you ever see? It was not Pride. It was one of the replacements for Pride when they left. They had a few Japanese shows, but they had a tournament called the Super Hulk Tournament, and it was Bob Sapp and a few other guys, and it was Sokuju. There was a Blast for the Past. We had Sokuju, and I can't remember who he fought in the final. But to get to the final, he fought Bob Sapp. And the organization that was putting it on, they did an ESPN type special every time one of these shows were on, where they had the fighters walking around, you know, checking them out, seeing what they do in their day-to-day life. So leading up to the Shokuju Bob Sapp fight, they're following around it. Here's Sokuju. He's taking the thing seriously. He's in the pool with the snorkel thing on, hitting the pads in the pool, doing all types of crazy stuff, and he's just being like the complete gentleman. He's like, listen, you know what? Everyone doesn't take Bob Sapp seriously. I take him seriously. And with that guy, you know, he has power, and everyone's like, you can just last a round or two, he's going to run out of steam. He doesn't have the steam. It's like, that's easier said than done, because when this guy charges at you like a bull, if you're in the way, you're getting knocked out. It's that simple. If one of those, if his hand, any one of them, just grazes me, I can get knocked out. I take his fight seriously. Nobody takes Bob Sapp seriously. They say he's washed up. No, man, he's a dangerous man. He's a big man. And if you step in the ring with that guy, you don't understand. So I'm training hard. I got to take it seriously. So meanwhile, they're at Bob Sapp's gym, and Bob hasn't shown up yet. Bob's manager gets on the phone. He says, where the hell are you? The camera crew is here. I'm going to fire you. And he's just going off. He comes out of the office. Oh, Bob's on his way right now. He had to stop and do something, not realizing that they heard every word that he said. Bob shows up in an SUV. He has his suit on, whatever. Like, he's obviously not coming there to train. Does a couple of interviews like, yeah, so Bob, we're hoping you're trained. Like, they're looking at him and saying, oh, supposed to be training. Puts on his shorts, and he starts hitting the focus bits, hits a bag, and, like, must do, like, 2 minutes of work, and he's completely exhausted lying on his back. And he's like, I gotta take a break. Just to look on his manager's face, like, dude, you know what? When I'm done here, I'm out. Like, I'm walking away. Please fire me. I don't want anything to do with this.
Yeah, it was just take the money and run at that point. But yeah, I can't blame him.
I do miss those days, though, because, like, there's something, as fixed as it was, there was something also honest about it as well, too. It's almost like the glory days of the WWE, but with real fighters.
Have you seen Ryzen? Have you watched it? I finally watched the last one live because it was sort of at a time that was okay. I actually streamed Ryzen 10, did a fight companion, started at 10 p.m. I didn't realize it was going to be 8 hours till 6 in the morning, but it did.
I haven't seen the last one. It's on my things to watch list, but I have been following Ryzen, and you know, dude, Ryzen and ONE FC, you know, I mean, something you know I've never really talked about. They're two organizations I'm actually very impressed with. ONE FC especially.
Yeah, I still have not seen much of UFC. I've seen a little bit of Ben Askren, and I don't know why I can't think of his name. The other biggest star over there, submission master Aoki, Shinya Aoki, yeah. And yeah, they've done very well over there. I like the way that they do the weight cuts over there. Actually, that's one of the greatest things. And the funny thing, I got on. I was talking to. Well, I've talked to several people about this, but the big ones I talked to Marcus Davis online. You know, that was on Ultimate Fighter. I think it was season 2. Anyways, he had a pretty good career in the UFC. And then Sam Alvey, who's in the UFC right now, and I said, you know, do you want the UFC to implement something like this? Do you think that they should be controlling how fighters, you know, watch how they're doing their weight cuts and stuff? And they said, absolutely not. You leave us alone to do our own thing. And I was a little surprised by that, but I guess I shouldn't be from the fighters themselves.
It's a very interesting dynamic that they have over there versus here. And I can get as a fighter, there's certain things that you know your body better than everybody else. You don't want people telling you how you should do your weight cut, which I can understand, right? Rewinding this to Ben Askren, I mean, like, dude, I want to see that guy in the UFC.
Oh, absolutely.
Khabib versus Conor, I don't want to see that fight. I want to see Askren versus Khabib. I think that would be an epic fight.
Yeah, I think it would be a great fight. I think Askren's wrestling is actually better than Khabib's.
Yep. I think it's going to come down to, and this is why I want to see this fight, because right now, I've not seen Khabib pressured on the ground. You can get pressured on his feet. I want to see Khabib get pressure on the ground, because if Khabib can survive him on the ground with that type of wrestling, Khabib's the baddest man on the planet. Like, hands down. If he can take on him at wrestling and submit, or at least be able to go toe-to-toe with him, while he's on his back and you got this guy, this monster of a guy on top of you, dude, you know what, man? Like, then I got nothing to say about Khabib as a fighter. His stand-up is still, questionable, and I think if he fights Conor McGregor, that's where Conor's going to have the best chance. If Khabib, I honestly feel Khabib takes Conor to the ground, it's going to be over. It'll be as over as the first Diaz fight. He's just going to beat him up on his back. Like, Conor will have no answer for him. A guy like that on top of him, he's on a different level. And it's funny because the way, not so much in technique, but the way Khabib fights on the ground reminds me of George St. Pierre in his prime. And what I mean by that is, whenever you saw George St. Pierre take somebody down and hold them down, it almost like he sucks the life out of you. Like, there's nothing you can do to fight back. Like, he has all the answers. Anything you do, it's just taking it deeper into the water. And Khabib has that I don't know what it is, dude, but it's like this type of animal instinct. It's like watching a boa constrictor at work, or watching like a crocodile in a death roll taking like a wildebeest into the water and just like slowly crushing the life out of them. And that's why I'd be interested to see Khabib fight a guy like that and see if when somebody's doing that to you, how, mentally no one's done that to Khabib yet. So I want to see how he responds when somebody does that to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And George is even a different kind of fighter. I think they all definitely have their strengths in this. Khabib might have better chain wrestling as GSP, than GSP. GSP is maybe the best I've ever seen at being in that position, and the Gracies have actually done a ton of breakdowns on this about how he is so great at being in that position to where he cannot be submitted and the guys cannot stand up, and it's just, I mean, he can strike. It's like he can hit you and you can't do anything to him.
Yeah. And you're right. I'm not comparing necessarily their style, just the relentlessness of their attack. And that's what I'm comparing. Just like, it's like you have, what do you do against this guy? Everything you try on the ground, they have an answer for. You're trying to counter them, they got a counter to that. They're 5 steps ahead of you, 10 steps ahead of you. And while you're trying to figure out what they're doing, they're punching you in the face. It's not a damn thing.
Yeah, absolutely. One of our guests on here, I don't know if you heard Michael Chandler's interview recently on Joe Rogan, but he said that he thinks he can beat Khabib Nurmagomedov. How do you think Michael Chandler stands up against Khabib?
Well, that'd be a good fight. That would be a good fight. You know what? I don't know. That's definitely one of those I would like to see that. I don't know. I mean, he does have a very unique style, and I'm going to sound like stereotypical, commentator styles make fights, and that's a very unique. That's very interesting. I never even thought about that.
I think Michael Chandler could stand with anybody at that weight, especially now that I think he's got his mental game together. And like I said, I don't know if you listened to that interview. I don't know that we will ever see another Bellator fighter be interviewed on the Joe Rogan Experience. because I kind of felt like it was a little bit of a low blow because he made no qualms about the fact that he was trying to push Chandler to go into the UFC. And I mean, he's got, 10 million listeners, and he's right out of the gate. When are you going to go into the UFC? Well, if you want to fight the best fighters in the world, you got to go in the UFC. And it's like, man, I was really surprised how hard he pushed it.
You know, it's there is two sides to that, which is, of course, Joe Rogan's going to do that because he's employed by the UFC. But there's the other side to it as well, where there are amazing fighters in Bellator that I know in the foreseeable future they'll never go to the UFC. They don't pay them enough. Right? Why am I going to go? Right? As soon as I go, I lose all my sponsorship money. Are you giving me a title fight right away if I'm going in? Or are you going to put me in the top 3 when I go in so I can get a title fight within my first or second fight? If the answer is no, then why am I going? Why am I going to give myself a pay cut to go there? Now, there's some guys who will go just because I want to challenge. I want to fight the best guys in the world, hands down. And if the top 3 or 4 best guys in the world are in the UFC, then I'll go fight them. I'll take a pay cut because I want to be champion, and I think I'll get that money back when I become champion of Undisputed. If you have that right mentality, that yep, I'll put all the chips on the table and bet because I know I'm the best in the world. I'll take on Steve. I'll take on whoever you put in front of me, Conor or whoever. But if you look at yourself from a career point of view, hey, you know what? I'm going to be champion Bellator, and I'm going to make a good career out of this. I'm going to make a lot of money when I retire. I can retire champion, open up my jiu-jitsu gym or whatever, make a ton of money because I was Bellator champion and the belt on the wall, and I made a ton of money from endorsements and stuff. Sometimes, you got to think about it from the Benjamin's point of view. Like, I got a career. I got to have a post-fight career. And I know the UFC's not going to take care of me. Bellator's taking care of me right now. Why am I going to give that up?
Yeah, and Michael Chandler's kind of like their golden boy. If I'm Michael Chandler, I'm not looking at the UFC unless they're throwing a boatload of money at me.
Yeah.
Because they really have taken care of him.
100%. They have to be willing to put up the money for that. And, with the UFC, it's so questionable whether they will take care of you or not. Because right now in the UFC, hardcore MMA fans know who he is. Guys in the UFC probably don't. People who just watch the UFC probably have no idea who he is. So, you know what they're going to say? They're going to have to market this guy, build him up a little, blah, blah, blah. Hopefully he'll have some good one-liners that they can use and some good sound bites they can use to build him up. But if they're not going to, they'll end up being a guy like Demetrious Johnson, who is like you have all the skill in the world, and he's the best fighter, destroy everybody in front of you, but they won't promote you because you don't talk shit.
We'll come back to that. I get so upset at the lack of marketing that they do with Demetrious Johnson. I believe that he's one of the most marketable fighters out there, honestly, and I think it's completely ridiculous. But some guys in the chat here were just stating that Will Brooks went to the UFC after beating Michael Chandler twice, and ended up he's out. He's out now. He's fighting. I think he's fighting in the Premier Fight League in that tournament, but he kind of lost his way out. And I think that's more of a styles make fights kind of thing than Will Brooks is better than Michael Chandler. Because Michael Chandler beat Eddie Alvarez, and Eddie Alvarez has obviously done well in the UFC.
Yeah. Styles do make fights, and sometimes you get a lucky break, right? I mean, let's be honest. Bisping winning that belt. You have that fight 9 times out of 10, he wasn't winning that fight.
Oh, yeah, that was...
I'm not hating on Bisping. Good on him for being the journeyman for all those years, and he got his opportunity, and he took advantage of it. But not if he would have had that fight 10 times, 9 times out of 10, Bisping was not winning that fight.
I absolutely said the same thing, and it was like Rockhold. It was like he was inviting him to hit him. It's like hit me. I mean, he's putting his chin out there. You could tell he had absolutely no respect for Bisping. There's no way Bisping was taking that rematch if he didn't have to. Not in a million years.
No, not in a million years, right? And that being said, good on Bisping. He deserves everything he's gotten from the UFC right now. He's always been a company man. Whenever they needed him to step up, he stepped up. And I'm not going to lie, until fairly recently, I was not a Michael Bisping fan. When he took that fight on 1 week notice, 2 weeks notice, fight, dude, I give him all the respect. That's a fight. That's a guy I respect right there. When
Yeah.
your draw, dude, like you're going out on your shield, man. Like, dude, I have nothing bad to say about him anymore. Like, yeah, he's a shit talker and everything, but as a fighter, you cannot argue this guy has heart. He is a fighter. You know, I hear. Don't get me wrong. And again, I'm gonna hate on Conor McGregor a little. You know, Conor McGregor makes that whole thing. I'll fight anybody, anytime, anywhere. No, Bisping will fight anybody, anytime, anywhere.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I had my issues with him too. He wasn't my favorite fighter. I had a lot more respect for him after that eye injury, and obviously a lot less respect for Vitor after some of the things that he said afterwards when he was trying to get Bisping to have a rematch with him. But I don't know if you've seen some of those comments.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Way,
disgusted.
Final fight yet or no?
What's that?
Has Bisping signed for his final fight yet? Do we know who he's fighting? Because I know he wanted to fight on the UFC England card.
He was supposed to fight on the UFC England card. A source I had been telling me that a contract between him and Nick Diaz was about 80% done, and then I think it was just about 2 days ago, Bisping came out and said, "Hey, unless somebody throws me a boatload of money, I'm retired." So I think he's done. Yeah. Unless they're trying, you know, it's so hard for them to get news out without people ruining it for them, unless they're trying to hide this one. And that's why I think they let the GSP Nate Diaz one out so early. And I know Dana White has had some issues with Ariel Helwani lately.
Dana White always has issues with Ariel Helwani all the time.
Upset more than usual. I don't know if he got in some inside information on the Nate Diaz GSP fight. That card's stacking. I can't even remember all the fights that are coming up on that card, but that card is going to be an absolute beast. And that one, I honestly, like I said, I didn't see Nate Diaz versus George St. Pierre even, you know, that came out of nowhere. I thought Nick would be fighting him before Nate.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've been hearing like basically Nick has priced himself out.
And I thought it was the same thing about Nate though. And now, you know, they gave him the big money fight. He said I don't think they gave him $20 million, but I know Nate went to the UFC and he said, if you don't give me $20 million, I'm not getting in the cage.
Yeah.
So,
you
but.
Know, I can, you know, the more and more I think about it, I can see the GSP fight making sense because I think before Khabib, everyone wants to have the Khabib fight with you know, McGregor. And it makes sense from a money kind of point of view and a fan point of view. But McGregor really, listen, you had your chance to fight Khabib, but you let the belt slip through your hands suddenly. You know, they're not paying me up. Like, really, how much can you pay McGregor? Like, you really don't have more barrel. You have to pay him money. So I honestly thought that if McGregor fought by the end of the year, the fight would be him and Nate 3. And it's finish off the triple death fight. From a money point of view, from a, you know, hey, let's make a ton of money and blow a little money right off in the sunset. That would be the fight that I could spend on, unless they're going to have him and Khabib in Russia or Ireland, right? So with that kind of fight not happening, with Khabib, you know, it's not going to happen. I can see Nate saying, "Okay, fuck it, I'll fight George. That's a fight that interests me. Let's fight at 155 or 170, whatever it is. Let's fight." So I can actually see that makes a lot more sense to me right now. But you know, it's still on.
Yeah, I definitely expected to see Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor before any of them. Also, especially since Conor gave up the belts, then there was no more reason to say, "Hey, you can't fight Nate." Well, I don't have a belt. I don't have to fight ring people. I can fight whoever the hell I want. And you know, it's the easier of the fights for him. Honestly, I don't see Conor beating Khabib. I mean, I'm not saying he can't, but if I was to bet on that fight, I would probably make Khabib somewhere around 5.5 to 6-1 favorite, to be honest.
Interesting.
And that's just my opinion on it. Well, when you look at Conor McGregor, and I would go back to look at the struggles he had with Chad Mendes. Chad Mendes is nowhere near the wrestler that Khabib is. And one thing I said,
he took that fight on what, 1 week's notice, 10 days notice, whatever it was. So
yeah, absolutely. He also had trouble with, and I don't think there's ever been any fight fixing as far as that is going on in the UFC, but I think sometimes possibly the referees could favor Conor McGregor. I don't know. I don't know exactly, but it seems like that he's gotten in some trouble that he's gotten bailed out of, and now I can't think of the German guy he fought that was kind of a journeyman guy, and I can't think of him now. But he was given Conor a great fight, and I thought they stopped it way early. Conor really didn't even have him injured. The guy was blocking most of the punches, and now I can't think of the name of the guy.
Dennis Seaver, was it?
Dennis Seaver. Yep.
Seaver.
Hey, good call. Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember that fight?
I do.
Did you think that they should have stopped that fight when it was stopped?
I think they did stop it early. I think, considering the beating that Dennis has taken before, I figured that they could have let that go a little bit longer. But I mean, everybody's different, and one thing I will say, that some people we don't see on TV, and I'll give the referee, like, I never really condemn a referee for an early stoppage, and the reason being, I've been close enough to ringside for many fights, boxing and MMA, where I hear people booing after, like, oh, they stopped the fight too early, why did they stop that fight? Mike was still fighting back. But then sometimes the referee sees it in the guy's eyes that you're out, or you're not there, or, the will to fight is actually gone, and to protect the fighter, he stops it. And sometimes they may do it a bit early, but sometimes, like, I've talked to John McCarthy where, about stopping fights early, and he goes, dude, really, sometimes I see it in the fighter's eyes. He's on autopilot, and he has more guts than brain. He has more heart than brains at that point. I have to fight. I gotta fight. And you see it in his eyes. It's gone, right? So, that also kind of goes to what Joe Rogan says about not interviewing fighters after they've lost or been knocked out, because unless you're in the ring and people who fought and been knocked out, understand where I'm coming from. Sometimes, like, hey, do you remember when you punched that guy in the face? No, I don't remember that at all, because they're out on their feet. They don't even realize for that second. The adrenaline, everything's happening so fast, so they don't remember because of all the adrenaline, the beating that they're taking. And sometimes you get these flash knockouts on your feet or on the ground, and the referee sees your eyes roll over for a second, he jumps in, and like, oh, dude, he's still fighting back. No, he's on autopilot. I'm a little bit forgiving about stopping a fight early. It's especially when you're that close. When you're that close to a guy, sometimes you see something that we don't.
Yeah, and I'll tell a story to these guys that they haven't heard, actually. When I was in amateur boxing, I don't know if you remember the Tough Man contest back in the day.
Yes, yeah.
So I did the Tough Man contest. I did it a few years. I did it in Tri-Cities Coliseum, and I went against a guy, everybody told me, says, this guy hits like a jackhammer. I mean, he had been fighting with guys that were professional or guys that had a lot more amateur fights than I had, and he just had, some people just have that natural talent, and it was a 175-pound fight at that time, and I was not knocked, I was not out. I'm sure I had a concussion. I didn't think I had, but at the time I couldn't even remember how many times I've been knocked down. But they were about to interview me, and I guess everybody says that I was knocked down 3 times. I thought I was only knocked down twice. But they go to interview me, and immediately I have to throw up, and I grab a bucket, and I puke in front of 10,000 people in the Tri-Cities Coliseum, and then I just remember almost passing out. and going into the crowd and not really remembering a whole lot after that. But when they stopped the fight, I thought I was 100% fine.
Yep. I can share a story where so I started off in Jeet Kune Do. I did a little bit of karate and taekwondo. I didn't find that appealing to me, and eventually, like every kid watching Bruce Lee movies, well, he created an art Jeet Kune Do. I want to do that. I want to be Bruce Lee. So I had a teacher here in Toronto for about 6 months. His name was Makoto Kabayama. He's a legend here in Toronto. I think he was the first Jeet Kune Do, authorized Jeet Kune Do instructor in Canada. And eventually, he passed me off to one of his new instructors, a guy by the name of P.G. Seacost, who's like one of the most amazing instructors I've ever had. He's all-around great kickboxer, striker, grappler. He just had everything down pat. And I remember I was boxing, and I was boxing this girl in our class. And you're a guy, so like, there's no way some chick's gonna knock me out. But she was smally walking me. And Pete's brother, guy by the name of Evan Seacost, he's like, Ian, listen, you're not picking it up. He's hitting you with the same combination. It's a classic jab cross hook, right? That's what you got to do. So when she fires that jab, she's going to fire that cross. As she's firing that cross and setting up for the hook, which means that the cross and the hook bury your cross right into her face, straight down the pipeline. Her hook is slow following the cross, so you'll have that split second just fire. Don't even think about it. As soon as you see that jab, let that cross fly. You're going to catch her between her cross and her hook. Great, dude. I saw the jab. I saw the cross. I never saw that hook. And from what I was told after, I just remember waking up and I was staring up. I'm like, what happened? You got knocked out. I never got knocked out. Then why are you staring up at us? From what I understand, she hit me hard. I didn't go down right away. I was walking around the ring almost doing like the Ric Flair. Bouncing off the turnbuckle and doing that. And then I finally fell on my back. And, if anyone have seen me that, I didn't see it obviously because I was out, but they're all saying like, listen, we thought you were fucking around. We thought you were like, oh yeah, you didn't hurt me, ha 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 ha. No, I was out on my feet. I was just walking around like a zombie. Then I finally collapsed. So, I do kind of believe that with what I said before with referees, sometimes what we think is an early stoppage. For the safety of the fighters, dude, like I said, I just think I'd go back to Carlos Newton at the beginning of the conversation. Think of what he's had to endure because of that knockout. And, if you're thinking about the safety of the fighter, dude, like, you know what? If I was a referee, I'd rather take flack from you after the fact than, know that, hey, one more punch could have fucked this guy up for life, and I don't want to be the guy responsible for that.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, and that's a good thought. You don't want to be Mario Yamasaki in that horrible fight, and I don't know if Dana, obviously he doesn't have the jurisdiction to not let Yamasaki ref again, but I don't know what's going on with that. But I was screaming at the camera. Everybody can attest. I was doing a fight companion, and I'm screaming for. It seems like it was almost the whole fight. She's gonna die. She's gonna die. Stop this fight. Stop this fight. And I was glad that everybody was kind of saying the same thing the day after. And then you got the same referee, Mario Yamasaki, though, that I'm sorry, you don't stop a fight with Michael Chiesa. I think it was Michael Chiesa and Johnson. I can't remember who it was now. In a choke, and the guy, he was not out. He stops a fight where a guy's in a choke. I mean, when you go out from a choke, you go out. It's not that big of a deal. It's happened. I've been out in chokes in judo. I've put guys out. Blink for a minute. And Kevin Lee, thank you, Stewie. It was Kevin Lee and Michael Chiesa, and yeah, he was not out. And then so I don't know if Yamasaki took that and said, oh, okay, you want to give me grief for not stopping fights? I'm never going to stop a fight now. That I don't know. That was just a weird thing for me. I don't want to see that guy ref again because he never did stop that fight.
No, he didn't. And it's one of those things where I don't know if he ever came out and apologized after and said, "Look, guys, I totally messed up there" or something. I don't know, but I mean, it's funny where.
No, he doubled down. he doubled down. He doubled down on Twitter, and I actually thought that somebody had hacked his account, or it wasn't him. He said something to the case, something to the point like, not everybody can be a gangster. It was something just really strange. Honestly, and I would say this to his face. I would say it to anybody. I think he's a sick person, and I think he would. I think he enjoys. I don't know what's going on with him, but that night, I think he was a sick person. I think he knew that that fight should have been stopped, and it takes a lot. I have to be pretty much 100% to make that kind of accusation, and I'm 100% confident in making that accusation.
You know, that's kind of scary. Then I mean, this is one of the things that if it's something like that, it's almost like you might want to. The commission might need to take a look at taking away his license as a referee. I didn't know it's gone that deep.
I thought so. I thought it was almost criminal, and I mean that's not something that we've looked into, like with referees and stuff. But I mean, I just don't understand it. I mean that the punish it was like 310 strikes in like I want to say like a round and a half to 1 or 2. It was the most probably the most brutal shutout in in professional MMA league history, I would imagine. Professional, talking about UFC, Bellator, Strike Force.
Now, by the way, I'm going to jump off topic for a second because I had a couple notes here, things I wanted to ask you. And here's the rumor mill. I heard Paula Harris is going to be fighting again.
I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard anything about Paul Harris.
Who's insane enough to let this guy fight again?
Oh God, yeah. To hold on to those ankle locks the way that he does and those leg locks, I mean, just normal guys that are good at letting leg locks and ankle locks go. I gotta admit, when I'm watching it on TV, I mean, I cringe much more than an armbar or a choke, and maybe that's because I've never been in one. But I mean, if you get a dislocated shoulder, it sucks. I've had my shoulder dislocated. You have a dislocated knee. I mean, you can't walk. That's a lot bigger deal.
I remember when I was training in Jikano, we were doing a lot of grappling, and a lot of our grappling was based on old school like Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and Sambo. And Sambo, they love to attack the leg. And I remember the very first thing our instructor said, Pete Jasika, okay guys, today we're going to be doing leg lock, ankle lock, knee lock. I cannot overstress. We are going to do this lightly and easily. This is stuff that doesn't take, if you messed up, it doesn't take your partner out for a day or two. They could be gone for 6 months to a year if you fuck this up right. And if you do it really, really badly, you don't take them out for a year. They may never walk properly again if you dislocate your knee properly. I'm like, whoa, holy shit. And he goes, yeah, there's a reason why they don't do this in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I honestly have no ambition to roll with anyone with leg locks and ankle locks, and I've done everything else all the time. You've probably heard this story maybe when I was interviewing Art Davey, but Jorge and Gracie, they had, Oleg Taktarov showed up on his door, literally. I mean, he was homeless living in his car, and Art had Rorian roll with Oleg, and he says, "Is this guy any good?" And he says, "Well, no, not really. I'm not that impressed with him." Well, the thing was he was not a leg lock guy, and they looked down on leg locks. And the one thing I didn't realize was leg locks in that world were actually kind of thought as like a lower class kind of thing, almost like a caste system kind of thing. And yeah, and that was very interesting to me.
Sorry, a caste system as in, sorry.
Well, I don't know if it's a caste, just like you were you were kind of like a lower person, almost like this is something like a lesser skilled fighter, I guess, is what I would say.
When you talk about like that Gracie story to another Gracie story. So back in the day, this is before the UFC was popular at all, and one of the few times I'd write about anything in my life. So we had gone down to train with Paul Vunak, who was was an ex-legitimate Navy SEAL hand-to-hand combat instructor, chief of no instructor. And he was also one of the guys in the early days really pushing Gracie Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. This is before the pre-UFC. So we had gotten to train with, now it's like you think like, holy shit. But we got to train with Hickson. And, back then, it was Hickson Gracie. Yeah, it's Hickson. Now when you look back, dude, it was fucking Hickson Gracie. Right? But the way he was kind of describing it with Hoist at the time was that, like, basically in Brazil, going for somebody, like, going for leg locks is the equivalent of kicking a guy in a fair fight. Right? Like, people look down at me, like, if you and I were grappling in the streets of Brazil, we started rolling around the ground or on the beach, and I went for an ankle lock, dude, forget your friend beating the hell out of me for getting cheap. My own friend would disown me and be like, oh, dude, you're a bitch. Look at that. You're going for the guy's leg? Come on. You're going to go for an ankle lock? That's a bitch move. Really? Might as well punch him in the nuts, right? So that, until fairly recently now, in a lot of jiu-jitsu classes, and I'm not sure what it's like in the States, but up here in Canada, a lot of jiu-jitsu schools now teach like leg locks, and it's more not for the sport element, but they teach a complete, here's the sport and here's the street. So they have started teaching it, and I guess they need to because jiu-jitsu's evolved so much. I mean, we like to think of it as oh yeah, it's the same that it was when Hoist Gracie was teaching it like back in 1993 or 94 and he's doing an UFC. No, jiu-jitsu, anyone who's been jiu-jitsu long enough knows it's completely evolved. I mean, just look at the stuff Eddie Bravo has brought to it. That doesn't include the stuff that wrestling has been, brought to it. Sambo, Greco-Roman wrestling, catch can wrestling. There's a lot of stuff that's been brought to it that wasn't there a few years ago. And leg locks for sure is definitely something that's becoming more and more accepted in jiu-jitsu community. Not so much in the sport, but definitely teaching it for self-defense.
Yeah, and I actually think that MMA has evolved more, like you were saying, in like the last 2 or 3 years than it has in quite a while. I would say the leg locks and the renditions of leg kicks, especially the very, very low ankle leg kicks. You see a lot more of them. You'd seen them way back in the day with like Marco Huas when he stopped Paul Varelans.
Marco Huas, there's a name from the past.
I'd love to talk to that guy. That's one of my favorite fights ever. Is when when Marco Huas fought Paul Varelans, and 300-pound dude kicked him until he broke his leg, until he couldn't walk.
I said something earlier. I'm gonna modify a little. 2 times I was actually right in about something where I was like, holy cow, I was actually right. When I saw one of the reasons I saw like Gracie start with the leg locks wasn't just that, but about a year later we'd see Hoist Gracie going to the first UFC, and I knew like before it even happened, dude, this dude, he's gonna beat everybody else. This guy was that good, right? Hoist. And when UFC 3 or 4, whatever it is, I remember they were interviewing guys who were going to be fighting in the next UFC, and they interviewed Marco Hua, and just the way he was talking, like, that guy's going to win that guy's going to be the next champion right there. Look at him. Like, he's just so super confident, and, like, it was just like, there was something about him that he brought this, whoa, you could do jiu-jitsu and you can strike, and when he started throwing those leg kicks, it was like, I've never seen leg kicks like that since.
My sensei, actually, Oscar Garnica, he's a 7th degree judokan, but back in the day, he had actually trained a little bit one summer down in Brazil, and he knew of Marco Huas when he came down. And yeah, he told us, he's like, this guy's on another level. Just watch him. He's going to come in and he's going to kill these guys. And it wasn't just with jiu-jitsu. It was, a lot with striking. And he had just done jiu-jitsu, basically submission and judo throws and things with him. So yeah, a lot of people knew who he was. I mean, they'd already called him the king of the streets in Brazil before he came here.
Yeah, legitimately so. And now you really got my mind going here. Pedro Hizo was another guy who I was a huge fan of as well too. One of his biggest students, Marco Huas' biggest student, Pedro Hizo. And I was such a huge fan. Like, I loved their style of fighting. It wasn't Muay Thai. It wasn't, it was was this kind of hybrid type of striking that wasn't Thai boxing, but it was this weird. They threw kicks in this really weird, efficient way. And Pedro Hizo was the same as well too. I'm like, dude, wow, man, I'm having like some major flashbacks now for stuff like of the early UFC.
Oh, absolutely. Could you imagine getting hit by that 250-pound beast leg kicks by Pedro Hizo? I mean, I could just imagine you not walk for a week.
You're talking about cringe-worthy, like when you see like a leg lock and how like you see more so than like maybe a choke or something like that. One fight that I saw that every time I see it, I was like, Pete Williams versus Mark Coleman, the shin kick in the face that knocked him out. That always makes me like cringe. And for anyone who's never seen that video, find it on YouTube. And when you show the video, if it's long enough, they show the entire clips in the UFC. You see the actual fight, then they show the replay, and you hear Mike Goldblatt talking about it. Look at the reaction of the woman sitting right behind Mark Coleman. That says everything you need to know of how just the look on her face of disgust and the way she turns away tells you everything you need to know how flush that kick landed.
I actually still have the poster that I used to have on my wall of that kick when Pete Williams posterized Mark Coleman. Yeah, that was that was the most memorable moment to me. That was the most memorable moment in the UFC up to that point. That was just so shocking, and I did not expect it. Those guys were going on over 15 minutes. I think somewhere in between 15 and 20 minutes. Yeah, that was just incredible. And I didn't even know who Pete Williams was before that fight. He came out of the Lion's Den.
Yes. The blast from the past, the Lion's Den, man. Like, what a great group of fighters they had back then. That was like the first, I wouldn't say the first real MMA gym, but outside of the Gracie family, that was the first, I guess, training group that started to get prominence in the UFC outside of the Gracies. And now that you mentioned Pete Williams, up to this day, I don't care what anybody says, my favorite MMA fight of all time, I can watch this fight till the day I die, Tito Ortiz, Frank Shamrock. For me, that was the fight. A lot of people, I guess your age, my age, say that the UFC came into its own with, the Ultimate Fighter series season final on Spike with Stephen Bonner and the infamous fight that they saved the UFC. For me, the fight that defined the UFC, that, okay, I'm going to watch this sport till the day I die, was Frank Shamrock versus Ortiz. Because that was the first fight where it's like, dude, they're pretty evenly matched, and they're well-rounded, they could strike, they could wrestle, they could submit, like, this is going to be a hell of a fight. That was the first fight where it wasn't so much a specialist versus specialist, it was really generalist. This was the age of the generalist. That was the fight for me that became the age of the well-rounded mixed martial arts. And it's a shame that when the UFC had the top 100 fights of all time, because of their hatred of Frank Shamrock, they would not even put that fight on the list.
Yeah, I don't know that Dana White has such warm, fuzzy feelings for Tito Ortiz either. But
yeah, it's true, Rick. It's true. That's true. Yeah.
Which part of that I believe is justified because of how Tito strung him along for that third fight with Chuck, and they did that whole Ultimate Fighter season, and then Tito backed out of that fight. I don't think I've ever been so upset with somebody backing out of the fight as when Tito Ortiz backed out of that after all of that smack talk. I was like, and I was a big Tito Ortiz fan at one time. I mean, I'm not saying I hate the guy, but I really lost a lot of respect for him.
I honestly didn't want to see that fight, and I'll tell you why. Just because, as far as I'm concerned, Chuck was going to destroy him again, right? Chuck had his number. Chuck had his number the same way that, at least with this my opinion, I could be completely wrong about this. I found Chuck nullified everything Tito did. Tito was not going to wrestle Chuck. Chuck is, we all forget how Chuck, anyone who would take it up, Chuck would find a way to get back up, and that includes Tito as well, to keep it on the feet so he could knock somebody out. But also, I just felt that he had his number in the same vein that Quentin Rampage Jackson has Chuck Liddell's fight number. And Chuck seemed to lose to guys who were great counter fighters. And Quentin, although he was a heavy striker, he was a counter fighter. And I remember calling that fight when he came to the UFC, and I said, Chuck Liddell's going to lose to Quentin, because what's going to happen is one of two things. It's either going to be a boring fight because they're both counter fighters waiting for the other guy to make a move, or Chuck will become impatient and he's going to overreach and fire off. And when he's firing off, Quentin's going to find his range and knock him out. And that's kind of exactly what happened. So I wasn't, when it came to the Chuck Tito thing, I wasn't really, we got to see this fight. You know, I was actually more wanting to see the in a trilogy, Randy Couture and Chuck Liddell, because they both had two great fights. And, you know, Randy unfortunately, you know, got knocked out again by Chuck. And I actually, like, for some reason that fight didn't bring up any emotion in me. And the other fight that didn't bring up any emotion in me was Tito and Ken Shamrock. Like, Ken got his ass kicked all 3 times. It was embarrassing. And like, after the season of The Ultimate Fighter, where they fought and they said the fight got stopped early, blah blah, sure, whatever. I don't know if that was Mary Yamasaki that stopped the fight early, but they said it got stopped early. We have a rematch. Why? Like, we all know how that was going to end. It was, you know, Ken's career was at an end, and
yeah, they just let Frank get they just let Frank or excuse me, Ken. They just let Ken get punished more is what they did.
Yeah. I feel like, wait a second, Ken has 2 fights on his contract. This is a way to get rid of one of them, so we don't have to worry about him too much more after that. I mean, it was just, and you know, the Ken getting booked in your own fight league with steroids, like, dude, come on, like it just, yeah.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that.
Yep, we're supposed to fight chemo. He got, I mean, like, that, for me, that is the definition of pathetic. It's your own fight. You run the rules, and you still get booked by the commission for having steroids. Like,
Yeah, and I've talked to some of these guys in other leagues, basically outside of Bellator, and there's a lot of them that said that they've never been tested. I've talked to guys that have never been tested, that have had tons of fights. I'm not going to name names, obviously, but I've talked to guys that have been in the UFC and basically said when they weren't in the UFC, they're like, "Oh yeah, I was on testosterone and this and that." He said, "Everybody was, absolutely everybody was. You can't compete without it." So yeah, I don't know how in the world he gets that happened to him.
your own organization. You've got another coming to test one day. They're coming to test them. But yeah, I will never hate too much on Ken, because for all the lunacy that he's been involved with, I used to enjoy watching him when he was the world's most dangerous man, when he was in Shudo before the UFC, when he went back to it. I loved his style as a grappler. Right? I love that heavy style. I loved his submissions. You know, I can't hate on him too much, and Frank taking that next level even more so. Frank Shamrock has to be probably my hands down favorite fighter of all time, just because he was the guy that made me really interested in all levels of fighting. His grappling was great. Like, he had like a chiseled physique. He was pushing all the time, like, hey, listen, it's not just about the kicking the bag and whatever it is. You got to get yourself in shape. So he was like doing the running and the swimming and all the stuff that made you, like, he took it like not as a fight. I'm an athlete.
Well, he beat Boss Rutan when Boss Rutan was thought to be pretty much invincible.
Yep, that's another guy I miss as well too, Boss Rutan.
That one really surprised me. I did not think Frank Shamrock would beat Boss Rutan. I thought he pretty much was not going to lose until he got old. And yeah, that was an amazing win.
It just goes to show you, like, you never know when the next young lion is going to come out. Like, see, I honestly didn't think, and it's not because I have a hard on for Frank Shamrock. I didn't think that Nick Diaz was going to beat him.
Oh yeah.
Kid, what are you doing? This guy's going to destroy you. Nick just mollywopped him, right? So you just never know when the next young lion's going to come up and beat you, right? So.
Yeah, Nick's got that slick style, and God, I hope we see him back in the cage. You know who I want to see him against more than anybody, though, and I know that they're older now, but I want to see that rematch. I want to see him and Robbie Lawler again.
Oh, yeah, yeah. What's going on with Lawler right now?
He's still recovering from that injury, I think, in the Rafael dos Anjos fight.
Okay.
It was some kind of leg tear. I can't remember exactly. I think it might have been an Achilles tear, and it happened during the fight. He fought highly compromised during that fight with Rafael dos Anjos.
And while we're on the topic, before you mentioned we mentioned Diaz before. So I don't know if my buddy's listening to this right now, but his name's Scott Grant. He's in Oshawa, Ontario, and he was the guy that got me really liking the Diaz brothers. And I was kind of like, I respect them, but I don't like their attitude. I'm full on with both Diaz brothers. I love both those guys. And so they're at a UFC, and I happened to run into Nick very briefly at a UFC in Toronto.
Oh, wow.
And it was just one of these, it was just one of these, like, he was walking through the crowd like nothing. And I'm like, oh, fuck, Nick Diaz. So, hey, Nick, how you doing, whatever. And at this point, my friend was converting me into a Diaz fan. And I was sitting there talking to him, and I was, he's obviously blitzed as hell. He's been smoking marijuana. You could smell it on him. And I told him, look, dude, you know what? I wasn't a fan before. I'm a fan now. He says, oh, yeah, Hobie will make you become a fan. Let me tell you something, bro. If you could smoke as much weed as you do right now, and you can get out and fuck people up, dude, you're on next level. That's next level shit. If you could fuck yourself up on weed that much and still go in the ring and beat the shit out of people the way you do, dude, you are fucking God.
That is great. Yeah, I love the Diaz brothers.
Actually, the commission shouldn't fine him. They should give him a bonus for going into the ring so messed out of your mind. Like, dude, if anything, it's not like steroids where it's giving you an advantage. This is giving you a massive disadvantage, and you're still performing like that. Dude, the commission should be paying him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's like, if somebody's going to fight me, it's like, please smoke more weed. Smoke as much weed as you can. I'll buy you a bag of weed.
Yeah. And when I started learning this guy does, like, triathlons and stuff in between fighting, it's like, dude, you're on the next level. Like, you're next level human.
Yeah, those guys are just, absolutely amazing. The cardio of those two guys, I was not surprised to see Nate Diaz, out cardio Conor the way he did, and he'll out cardio anybody. Of course, I don't know that GSP is going to run out of cardio at a lighter weight like he was at 185, but I mean, in a 5-round fight, I guess that could be a factor. And they're saying it's a co-main event, so I'm hoping it's a 5-round fight.
I'm hoping, but if it's a co-main event or a main event.
It's going to be the co-main, the main event. God, let me just bring this up. I don't know why I'm having a brain fart on this, but go to UFC 227. I just want to bring up this whole card because, this card is pretty crazy. I figure Joe Rogan does it all the time. He's always got young Jamie looking stuff up for him. So, it's on the same card as Dillashaw versus Garbrandt too.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a good card right there.
Yeah, absolutely. They got. I thought there was more announced. Okay, so on the site they don't officially have Nate Diaz and George St. Pierre listed on here. But Dana White, came out and said we're gonna make this fight happen. So maybe they're not officially, I guess, confident enough to put it on the site.
You know what? I'm gonna do a throwback here to the good old days of pro wrestling in the 1990s. I'm gonna go back to Scott Hall when he used to ask the crowd, "Hey yo, time for a survey." I want to throw a survey out to anyone who's listening right now. what is the fight that never happened that you wanted to see?
All right, everybody. What is the fight that everybody wanted to see happen that never happened?
Never happened. It could be from jealousy, it could be from pride, it doesn't matter. But the fight that, like, dude, I would have paid big money to see this fight, and it never happened, and it'll never happen again. Either because they're too old or retired, or it's meaningless now. Like at the time, there was a good meaning for this fight. There was a lot on the line, whether it be a belt or whatever. But now, even if the fight would happen, it's a meaningless fight. It wouldn't really matter. It's like Royce Gracie versus Ken Shamrock 3. It's a meaningless fight. Like, who cares? Right?
Yeah.
So what is the fight that you never got to see? You know, in their like that. There was a time, there was a window of opportunity. Like I'll give you one, like Randy Couture versus Theodore, when they were both at their prime. They both were dominating their division. The UFC just couldn't make it happen. So what was the fight that you think should have happened, that you would have loved to see but never happened?
Fight that should have happened at the time.
Like fans wanted it, you knew it was going to make a lot of money, but for whatever reason, contracts, injuries, bullshit, it couldn't happen. Like, I'll throw another one out there. George St. Pierre versus Anderson Silva. Both, when they were champions, they dominated their division. They were like the undisputed number 1, number 2 in the world. I want to see that happen, but it didn't happen. So, what would the fight? I
would have loved to see that. I would have liked to see Vanderlei and Chuck fight earlier in their career.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
That was a great fight when it happened. I think it would have been very different under Pride rules too, because Vanderlei obviously, was one of the best at using those, the kicks and the knees on the ground and stuff. Guys that didn't line up, the fight I would say that I would have liked to have seen in their prime is actually Chuck Liddell versus John Jones. And people say that Chuck would not, that the game passed him up at his prime. I think Chuck would have gave John Jones his money's worth. His takedown defense is great. His power. So.
I would also, although this is not such a big fight, just for skill level, I'd like to see Pat Miletich versus Matthew.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Although I know they were like teacher and student, and they never would have fought. Matthews more than surpassed Pat Miletich as a fighter. I'd love to see that fight.
Yeah, that's a good one. Pat Miletich is not given his due of what he did for MMA, though, and a better coach than he was a fighter.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I'd like to see another fight I would have wanted to see, and it's probably never going to happen, is John Jones versus, what's his name? Gustafsson, too.
Oh, yeah. I think Jones...
record right now, Gustafsson beat Jones. I don't care what anybody said. I saw that fight live. I'll go to my grave saying that Gustafsson beat Jones.
I scored the fight 3 rounds to 2 for Gustafsson. Also, I thought it was close. I didn't think it was the worst decision I've ever seen.
No, I won't fault the decision, because that one I could, I'm not going to argue that it wasn't a good call per se. Like, oh wow, it shouldn't have never happened. No, I could see how people could have scored that for Jones, but in my view, I watched that fight like 6 or 7 times. Every single time, Gustafsson won that fight, but he should have been given an immediate rematch after that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I believe so. If Stephen Thompson got an immediate rematch against Tyron Woodley, that's the exact same situation.
Yeah.
So, and the exact same thing happened. Those were 2 guys that were very closely matched, Tyron Woodley and Stephen Thompson. But yeah, guys are going to get annoyed with me because they're tired of me talking about it. But did you watch the second Joanna Jędrzejczyk Thug Rose fight? Who do you think won that fight?
I actually think it was a good call. I think Rose actually won that fight. I know some people are like, no. I think there's a good call for a trilogy, but I think Rose won that fight. And the only reason why is because, now, I've seen it once, so I haven't seen it enough times to say, you know what, maybe I'll change my view. But watching that fight, I was watching it very, very closely with a good friend of mine. I think Rose did enough to win that fight, and it's I throw back to you got to beat the champ to beat a champ. I don't think she beat her. In the third round, I believe it is, where she was molly-wopping her with those kicks. Yeah, I think you could have scored that at 10-8 round. And if anything, I could have seen it as a draw, but I don't know if I wouldn't have given the fight to Rose. Worst case, a draw.
Okay, yeah, and that was one of those cases where I don't think that I let my bias get the best of me. In that fight, for some reason, I really did let my bias get the best of me. When I was doing the fight companion I was actually telling everyone, hey, Joanna's won 4 out of 5 rounds. I mean, I don't know what fight I was watching. And everybody's like, Mike, you need to rewatch that fight again. I'm like, I really think this is what I seen. And then I watched it, and I seen it much different. So, I guess, everybody's human. But yeah, that one was one where I really seen it differently watching it again with a different eye. I still thought Joanna won it, but I definitely could see how people thought Rose won it. And 2 things that drive me nuts, though, in judging, and maybe I score them too highly, but I don't think leg kicks get enough credit. And I think takedowns that do no damage get way too much credit.
Yeah. Well, there's a joke that infamously, if that's how Chuck Liddell won the fight against Vanderlei Silva, this fight could be scored either way. After the last time, I'm just going to go for a takedown and cement it.
I remember, I'm like, who would have thought that he would have gone for a takedown too? That was the last thing I was expecting. Yeah, but he did.
Let me tell you a joke on that show. I was sitting with a bunch of friends watching the fight at the Boston Pizza. For your U.S. viewers, it's and listeners, it's just Boston Pizza is a famous chain up here of it's like sports bar restaurants across Canada. I remember watching that fight. When Chuck Liddell went for the takedown, I had this one white guy, really good friend of mine, named Owen. And Owen, the bar is completely silent when Chuck Liddell does that takedown. Everyone's gasping, oh my God. And as this bar is completely silent, Owen, who's a white guy, goes, what a bitch nigga move that was.
Oh my God.
And there was this huge black guy. He's like, yo, bro, I'm sorry. He goes, no, man, you're right. That was a bitch nigga.
I don't think everybody got all of that. You actually made me knock my mic over with that. Yeah.
I'll probably offended somebody by saying that.
See, you can say it. I can't, but.
Well, Owen got away with it, and he was white.
Oh, that's.
I'm turning in my Chuck Liddell card, man. I just knocked out Vanderlei Silva. None of that bitch nigga shit. Forget that. Don't take him down. Knock him out, man. Come on.
Oh my gosh, that is great. I think they're a little nicer there in Canada than they are here.
Yeah, I think they're a little bit different here. And I have one question for you. I know it's getting late here. We've been on for a bit, but before you call it wrap, I wanted to ask you. You said you would mention it. I'm going to bring it up so you can go on a rant. Demetrious Johnson.
Demetrious Johnson. I think he's one of the most marketable guys out there. He's a very charismatic guy. He's finishing fights now. He'd be good around kids, but he's a video game player. We're losing the young fans. I seen something like the median age MMA fan now is like 39 years old, which I'm 39 years old. Yeah. And what are kids doing right now? They're all online playing Call of Duty, and Demetrious Johnson is online playing Call of Duty with them. How can you not be marketing this guy? I don't understand it. And yeah, he's crazy fast. He's got the awesome nickname. I think he's a charismatic guy, even though he's can be shy at times. but I just think they really need to market him. They could do so much more with him in front of the camera, especially.
That last fight, that submission for me was the greatest submission in the UFC ever.
That is definitely up there. And I thought that afterwards. I thought this is the greatest submission ever. I don't know if I want to stick with that. For now, it is. I'm hesitant. I like to give things a little bit of time after I've seen something, because I've seen a fight and been like, hey, that's the greatest fight ever. And then like the next day, I'm kind of like, okay, was it the greatest fight ever, or was it, it was so great I got caught up in the moment. But yeah, definitely one of the greatest submissions.
My justification for it is, it may not be, the coolest, most crazy submission ever. For me, it's the best submission ever, because usually when it comes to submission, I can see the setup.
Yeah.
Right? Like, for example, when Korean Zombie got the twister on, I saw the setup. And so did Joe Rogan. He goes, dude, he's going for a twister. He's going, no, he's not going. Yeah, he is. He's going for a holy cow. He pulled it off, right? So you can see that setup. When somebody's going for an arm bar, you can see the setup. When you see the choke, like, oh, he has the choke on. I didn't see that setup. That's what got me. Like, dude, I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 20 years. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
I should have, but I didn't see it coming. He hit it so well and set it up so quickly and executed it so quick, like, oh my God, it's done. The fight's done. Holy cow. That's why, for me, it's the best submission, just because, not maybe because the most technical or whatever, just the setup for me, when I've seen just about every submission possible, and, most fight fans have, who watch religiously, and a lot of the guys who are fight fans, they're taking, maybe doing once a week, twice a week jiu-jitsu, blah, blah, blah. So it's not like it was when Royce Gracie was around, where the fans are not educated. The fans are super educated, right? So for me, as an educated fan and as someone who practices the arts, not to see that coming, dude, that for me is the best submission so far that I've seen, because I didn't see it coming.
And I gotta say, that probably is my final answer for now, because I can't think of a better one. Nothing comes to mind. So, and that's one of the
twister for me by Korean Zombie is a close second, because no one's ever pulled that off like that. So it was like unique, and the fact that afterwards, like, I was watching a video the other day. Wait a second, you didn't practice this? You learned it off of watching an Eddie Bravo video? Really? Like, okay, now you got my respect, right? Even more so. That's why it's a close second. So, Demetrious Johnson number 1 and Korean Zombie number 2. Just because, again, it's the story behind it. Like, it was impressive the way you pulled it off, but the fact that, dude, you're saying that, I was watching an Eddie Bravo video the other day and wondered, can I pull that off? So I was in the middle of the fight, I saw, hey, maybe I can see what I can do. That's a level of skill, an insane level of skill. So, Demetrious, going back to Demetrious Johnson, like, dude, that's not going to do. He should. I get it. It's a shit-talking society that we're living in, that the more nonsense you spew, the more people like you. And Conor McGregor has that down pat. And some of these other guys are trying to be Conor McGregor, trying to get those money fights. I get it. But, Demetrious Johnson, like, dude, like, on his skill alone, he should be getting up $2 million a fight.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that he has not gotten more than $1 million payday, I don't think he's even gotten $1 million payday, for me, it's like a trap.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, to me. And that's one of those ones that should be all over the internet. That's one of those ones that should be on, the ESPN Sports Center and everything. I thought that was as great a moment to the submission game as Anthony Pettis' Showtime kick off the cage was.
Yeah.
Which is probably my favorite strike of all time, even though it didn't end the fight. It's definitely up there. Just because I never seen anything like that.
My favorite strike of all time, and this is going out there for the Jeet Kune Do fans out there and the Wing Chun fans, was Vitor Belfort's straight blast of Vanderlei Silva across the ring in the early UFC.
Oh yeah, that was a great one. He was an animal back in the day.
Yeah. It's like when you heard like, oh yeah, he was doing amateur boxing before, no doubt. But I remember, dude, as a Jeet Kune Do fan, like the straight blast, the chain punch, that is like a staple of Jeet Kune Do and of Wing Chun. And to see somebody, when you're early in a martial arts career, and we've all been there, like, hey, you learn a move in a martial arts, you try to pull off any friends, it doesn't work. Like, what the fuck? I'm like, oh, this is supposed to work. To see something that you've been training where, here's my instructor saying, let me tell you something. You pull off the Jeet Kune Do, you pull off this straight blast, you run at a guy and you're blasting this chain punch down center line and you catch him. I'm telling you, you can blast that guy in oblivion. You forget the headbutt doubles knees after, just couldn't finish a fight. Sure, whatever, Pete, blah, blah, blah. Then to see it actually get pulled off in a fight. And like, whoa, this shit works. Holy cow. Trust me, the next day at class, that's all we're practicing. That chain punch.
That's great. Yeah.
And I've actually pulled that off in a fight and it does work.
That's awesome. Yeah, the speed that guy had, the power and speed was just, it was just on another level, and especially for the time. I remember, for whatever reason, I was a Tank Abbott fan, and I still am. I guess he is entertaining. I know the guy's an asshole. Nobody's going to argue with that. And then I was so excited to see that fight, and it looked like, an expert fighter literally just fighting. I mean, it was like somebody who was an infant in the MMA world. They didn't even belong in the same cage. So yeah, he was at an amazing level.
Well, for one more fight out for that I wish I wish it would happen. It's never gonna happen. Different weight divisions, different eras. But I wanted to see what's his name, Chael Sonnen versus Conor McGregor for no other reason. I don't care about the fight. That would fucking happen.
Oh yes, the build up and the shit talking. Chael in my mind is the king. Don't get me wrong, Conor's good. Chael is the king.
I'll end with my two favorite quotes from a fighter ever. One was Chael Sonnen recently in Bellator. Can't remember who he fought, but he won, and he's basically going on like how he wants to. He'll fight anybody, and he's like, I'll fight Fedor, I'll fight Frank Mir. I don't care. I'm ready to fight now. I don't care if you want me to, fight 1-on-1, 2-on-1, 3-on-1. Anyone who steps in the ring right now, the only number that they're going to care about is 911. That, and so I have to find this because I have it on tape somewhere, and this is going back to the W1 days. And Jack, if you're out there and you have a copy of this video, please send it to me because I want to play this on the interview. It's my favorite interview of all time. And I don't know if you've gotten him on show yet. Have you gotten Shoney Carter on the show yet?
Yeah, I've had Shoney. He was one of my first guests.
Okay. Did Shoney ever tell you about the fight with him and Carlos in Montreal?
He talked about it. Basically, what he said about it, one thing is he wanted us to get him that damn DVD, he said, and he thought that he thinks he won that fight.
That would be awesome.
All right, I could do that. I have his address.
Okay. So let me tell you a backstory here. So I don't know if Shoney was high before this. Sorry, Shoney, if I just outed you. So he's fighting Carlos Lee, and we have a reporter there who's interviewing him. This is after the win. So he's doing his interview, and Shoney is being Shoney. And I give Carlos all the credit in the world for taking this so lightly. And I guess Carlos even knows Shoney, so whatever. So he's fighting Carlos, and they're being interviewed by local TV or something. And they ask, how do you feel? Carlos finally, headlining a fight again in your home country, blah, blah. He goes, it's great, It's always great to fight on your home soil because for so many years, Canadians had to fight outside. Your family and friends couldn't be here. But now, there's a few hours up the street from Toronto, so it's great. My family can come, my friends can come. I'm fighting Shoney Carter, Mr. International. So this is great. You know, it's like a dream come true. I have nothing but love for Shoney. I have nothing but love for him. He's a great guy. Shoney is dressed, of course, like a pimp. And he has these two French-Canadian schoolgirls. Women dressed like schoolgirls.
Yeah.
The reporter is like, so Mr. Carter, tell us what's going to happen in a fight. Tell you something, my good lady. Now, this is going to be the greatest moment in sports history ever. In fact, it'll be the greatest moment in black history. See, this will be a greater moment in black history than Emancipation Proclamation and the freeing of slaves. This will be bigger than Jesse Owens beating the shit out of the Nazis in the 1936 Olympics in Berlin. This will be bigger than Ali versus Frazier. This will be bigger than Buster Douglas knocking out Mike Tyson. This will be bigger than Nelson Mandela being elected as president of South Africa. And for all my Canadian friends, this will be bigger than Don Cherry saying that Jerome McGinley is the greatest hockey player in the world.
Oh my God. Wow.
I would just like to say now that please tune in on Saturday night, because I promise you, this will not be a fight. This will be Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Two men will enter that cage. Two strong black men will enter that cage. Only one black man is going to leave. And it's going to be Mr. International, Shoney Carter. Now, I know in Canada, there is no death penalty, but I promise you, a man is going to get executed in that ring. Live on pay-per-view. Now, that being said, I want to send a shout-out now, because I promise you, this will be black on black crime at its absolute finest. One of us two brothers is going to get beaten to death in that ring. And that's if you're lucky. See, if Mr. Newton is unlucky, I'm going to put him into a triangle choke. And he's going to have to explain to his woman why his face was in my ball all that time. Now, that being said, as I promised you, someone's going to die in that ring. And I'd just like to send a shout-out to Carlos Newton's children. I'm not sure if he does have children. Do you have children, Carlos? I don't know. I think he might have children. But if you do have children, I'm sending a shout-out to them right now, because they're about to be turned into orphans. So please,
Oh my God.
have a good night. At the end of the fight, so he's doing the post-fight interview. Carlos beats him. He's doing the post-fight interview. He goes, to all my fans, everyone out there in Quebec, I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, sorry, don't be sorry. It's a good fight. No, I'm sorry. I promised someone's going to die in this ring, and they didn't. I like to keep my promises. Unfortunately, we're both going home alive, but I promise you the next time we meet, one of us is going to die in this ring.
Oh.
Best interview I've ever seen.
That
day, we're going out, and just and an epilogue on that story. We're going out, and it's myself, Alex the matchmaker, and Jack. And if you've ever seen Shoney, if anyone doesn't know what Shoney dresses like, just Google Shoney Carter. You'll understand. He dresses like a pimp everywhere he goes. And he has a top hat, the pimp cane, and the cape. And he walks down the street. And these two guys go walking by, and they obviously recognize him. They stop. And they're wearing tap-out shirts, and obviously they know who this guy is. So they stop, and one guy comes running back up. Excuse me, sir. Sorry to stop you, sir. But are you Shoney Carter, Mr. International? And he's like, what type of fucking stupid question is that? You're wearing tap-out shirts, and you have no fucking clue who I am. And then he took pictures with him and did autographs, but he was like the coolest guy ever.
Oh yeah, yeah. He definitely is. Yeah, he's beyond approachable. Invited, me and my family out to dinner and all kinds of things. And yeah, he's very, very cool guy.
Do me a favor, when you get a chance, Google him and Don Fry doing an interview. It is the craziest interview you'll ever see. They're both obviously high, and they're just talking complete dumb shit at a convention.
That sounds epic.
That's all I gotta say. Them talking dumb shit.
That sounds epic.
For 20 minutes.
I may wait till That is great. I may wait till tomorrow because honestly, I got to be up at 3 in the morning, so I think I'm gonna end this up. But thank you so much. That was a great time, great reminiscing on some of those old memories and some current news. So we'll have to do this again when we get the sound. I get everything a little better. I go over to Comcast and yell at them. I'm paying enough for internet.
No worries. Like I said, dude, anytime you're coming up, if you ever cross the border and you come up into Toronto, man, let me know. I've so much stuff I can show you going on up here, man. So it's let me take you out for drinks or something one day, man. If you're ever coming up this way, even if you're coming up to Buffalo, I'll cross the border to Buffalo and pick you up and bring you to Canada.
Absolutely, I'd love it. That sounds great. All right. Well, thank you again, man. Take care, brother. I will talk to you soon.
Okay, buddy. Thanks again for having me on, and have a great night.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, buddy. Take care.
All right, thank you guys. Sorry about the bad sound on that. Like I said, I'm going to have to get with Comcast. I've never had this issue before with Facebook Messenger. I had it with Skype with Art Davey last week. I'm going to have somebody come out and look at my lines. I'm in a rural area. I pay enough for my damn internet. But thank you, Panhead Bob. I appreciate that. So I'm going to wrap it up for tonight. I got to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning. But thank you guys very much. As always, I love you. I respect you. And I'll see you fine asses later.